Hello, America. Dave Hodges here, host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. We're dedicated to God, family, country in that order. And we're so glad you're with us. Thank you very much again. Hey, we are brought to you by a great opportunity. And you know what it's from? My friends from Kirkstone Metals. These guys are fantastic. It's a $10 million company, which sounds big, but compared to who they're competing against, it's not. And these people are just at the best at what they do. And I got to tell you, in these troubled economic times, you need to look for something that is going to hold promise and a surety that it's going to be here. Our economy could go to you know where in a handbasket, but the government's not going to let its interests fade by the wayside. You know, they put themselves continuity of government first over the welfare of the people. It's been done over and over and over. So what you need to do is say, okay, what's the government going to be most interested in? One of those things is uranium. And this is really important because uranium is for defense, high tech, and we may be rationed on our end, and we'll discuss that possibility a little later. But on the front end, the government's going to do what it needs to do to survive. So they need uranium and they recognize it. They have put down $2.7 billion in the Athabasca mining region for uranium. And this $10 million company is competing with $250 million companies. So which one is easier to get into? Well, that would be Kirkstone, the $10 million company. But it's the same opportunity, and they own two Athabasca uranium mines. Whoa, this is ground floor investment. Seriously. It's a lot better than betting on the NBA, another topic for another time. But this is a great opportunity right now. Free video for you to watch. No pressure. All you got to do is go to ksm-presentation.com/ the Common Sense Show. Now, the Common Sense Show has dashes between each one of those words. Again, that's ksm-presentation.com/ the Common Sense Show with dashes between the Common Sense Show. I'd do it today. I'd take a real strong look at this. This is a ground floor opportunity. All right, I've been looking at things and this is really how my mind works. I'm going to draw upon history over several segments in the next few days because history, you know, what does Mark Twain say? History may not be repeat, but it sure does rhyme. Well, we're looking at that, I believe, right now. And I think the government is setting up to control everything. Everything. And this is going to actually have to be divided into two parts to make the case. But we have new banking restrictions out there, which have really tightened up the old banking restrictions. And well, let me put it this way. What we're being told is we need to protect you from RICO, organized crime, money launderers, drug dealers, you know, those kinds of. So we got to really watch your cash. And if we even think that you're doing something wrong, your bank has an obligation to take your money and notify us. No due process, none. So I'm thinking, okay, this is about as unconstitutional as it gets. And I'll get into the regulations in a second, but it's violation of due process. You're innocent until proven guilty. They have to charge you with something, take you to court, but they don't do that. They even have made it so that, like the IRS, they can come get your home. They can take your car. They have complete power of confiscation without due process with what's coming. And it's like the automobile kill switch. Are you noticing a trend here? Okay, so let's talk about the rules, okay? Let me go back in time because I've written about this pretty extensively because I was concerned then. By the way, I got crap for just taking out $1,500 to help a relative buy a car. What do you want the money for? I don't think it's your business. Well, we have to no, you don't. It's not $10,000. And I'm not doing multiple withdrawals. which would make it structuring. So I knew my rights when I went in there. I had to tangle with the VP. I say, well, do what you're going to do. And then, basically you're breaking the law, so I'll do what I got to do. Well, they had let me take the money. And it wasn't until they made a scene and they made themselves look absolutely ridiculous. When you're confronted like that, remain calm, take a deep breath, count to 10, okay, and just be very factual, but don't back down. When you know you're right, don't back down. Now, here's the rule. If you take out $10,000 in cash, or if you put in $10,000 in cash, or if you have a couple, 3 months where you're putting in 8,500, 9,000, 7,700, and it looks to the bank, and their software now is programmed to detect this, that you're structuring. You're trying to avoid the $10,000 report requirement. Now, it's not so much these laws have changed. It's the software now picks it up. There's no human judgment, no human interaction, and the humans do what the AI tells it. This is what makes it so bad. And there have been instances now where people acting innocently, have taken the money out to use legitimately, and they've had the money stolen from them. Now, your bank files what they call a SAR, a suspicious activity report. And it's based on your what they call a CTR, a cash transaction report. And we suspect you of being a RICO drug trafficker, bad guy. Okay, well, first of all, I've been reading about cases where people have been affected by this. Most of them are elderly. I don't think a 68-year-old great grandmother is involved in RICO activities. What do you think the odds of that are? Odds are better that you and I will travel to the moon in the next year. It's ridiculous, but I've seen people's lives turned upside down because they still have bills to pay. They got to pay their property taxes or lose their home. They got to pay their income taxes. This is horrific, horrific. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, let me do a little inflation comparison, okay? When these laws were first developed, $10,000 was worth in today's dollars back in the 70s is now worth about 75,000. That's right. If they had the law that said 75,000, well, I don't think many people are going to take $75,000 cash out. But 10,000 wouldn't be that unusual. And they might have all kinds of legitimate reasons why. And someone might give you $10,000 as a gift. Don't have to report it if it's under 10,000. So having said that, this is a bad law. It's invasive, it's intrusive, and it gives the government a chance to confiscate your money. But I think this is above and beyond that. I think there is a bigger purpose. Why? Well, I believe, for reasons we'll talk about coming up, that we're headed into a completely digital age. And we're going to have a digital dollar or some form of currency, not the petro-backed dollar. Because, first of all, have you noticed what's going on with oil? What oil? Where's it at? Exactly. So I think that the petrodollar is on its last legs. And that's the only thing that gives our money any value since we're off the gold standard. And they're not going back on the gold standard because we're almost $40 trillion in debt. We exactly, gold won't work unless you're dollar for dollar. So what is this about? I believe we're going to see a repudiation of the debt, and I'll talk about this in the next segment because it's happened before. And the Rockefellers and people like them, JP Morgan in this country, knew what was coming, and that's why they created the Federal Reserve, because they knew Europe was in trouble. We'll hit that in the next segment. I'll give you a little history lesson there. Now, here's what's really interesting. War is coming. I'll tell you in the next segment how I know that. Well, war is already here, you say. Well, I think this is I think this is the preview. I think we'll look at this as bad as the war is the good old days. But what we're looking at is moving to digital, and they don't want cash for competition. They have to take your cash. Now, eventually, I imagine they could phase it out, but they're going to have a hard time doing that for a while without facing major rebellion. So they want to limit the amount of cash that's out there. They want to make you afraid to carry cash. You know, by the way, you know what civilian asset forfeiture is, don't you? It's the first cousin to this nonsense. You're driving through a small town, all right? You're a restaurant owner and you went and worked a restaurant event remotely. And this, I'm describing a true case that I know about. And you're pulled over for going 10 miles over the speed limit. And then they concoct some phony baloney reason to search your car. And the guy gave him permission, which is stupid. When any cop wants to search your car, do not cooperate, not voluntarily. Now, if they order you to cooperate, you should, but then you have legal recourse. You simply say, Officer, I don't consent to any searches. Well, if you have nothing to hide, Officer, again, I don't consent to any searches. That's your magic phrase. This guy didn't do that. So he came back with about $15,000 of cash paid to him for this event he was running. That's right. So the cops are going through this bag. Oh, you're a drug dealer. You're under arrest. They actually booked him and took him to jail. Well, they had no proof of a secondary crime. So they had to drop those charges. Meanwhile, he's got a lawyer that's costing him more than the money they confiscated. And that's the key. That's the key. Did he ever get his money back? No. Civilian asset forfeiture. Now, I don't believe that's part of this. What the banks are doing is a systematic discouraging that they don't want cash out there. And civilian asset forfeiture is allowed, I think, for the same reason. They want to make you afraid to carry cash. In the old days, you would have just transacted in gold. I'm serious. If you go back and you look at pre-Federal Reserve, pre-1913, yeah, that was real common. In fact, people would go to the bank and exchange their gold for cash or their cash for gold. That was common before the Federal Reserve Act. So we are really in a mess right here. And I think that we all need to wake up to the fact that this is an orchestrated plot to remove the use of cash. And you look at this too. You go, okay, we went to a baseball game last spring to watch the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so I'm going to go by, it was wonderful. They had hot dog and Pepsi and popcorn. They had this package deal. It was like $8. And I'm saying, wow, that's amazing. And it was a little special they were running and not within my diet purview, but I made an exception. And so I went to pull out my credit card and I'm sorry. I mean, excuse me, I went to pull out my cash and they said, we're sorry, we only take plastic. Really? Is that true everywhere? Is that just you're the only vendor? No, no, no. This is true everywhere. It's a cashless venue. And then I found like if you go to a concert, they have cashless venues. Folks, this is happening everywhere. And I'm sure you're all shaking your head. Yeah, Dave, I've seen this. Okay. This is the removal of cash to usher in the digital age. Now, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert for what's coming. I'm not saying it's definitive, but what does the Bible say about Mark of the Beast? And let me ask you a question. Would that be related to a fiat cash system like the one we have now? Or would this be a digital system of money? Just let that sit with you as you think about it, because that'll prime your mind for what's coming up. And I think as Americans, and if you're a Christian American, I think that you need to be mindful of great deceptions, the falling away, the desolation that's coming. I mean, I think we need to be mindful of the times that we live in. I was shocked when our pastor of my church, it was about 5 or 6 weeks ago, he said, how many do you think we're living in the end times? And I kind of like halfway put my hand up because I'm not sure. I think if we all got on bended knee and repented, it would be a different story. But I think it's possible. He said, I do believe we're leaving the end times. And this guy has such a logical um, methodology to him. He is so calm, but passionate for the Lord. And he's so matter of fact that I was like, whoa, my wife and I are looking at each other. It's possible this is the time we're in. And I think I'm hitting on something here That's the first cousin. I don't know that what we can do about it, except you need to be aware of the laws. Be careful about multiple withdrawals or putting money in that approaches the $10,000 limit. And I'm not sure where the bottom is. It's they look for the patterns in the algorithm. And if that looks like you're trying to avoid 10,000 in one fell swoop and come under federal scrutiny, that's when they get you for the structuring. And by the way, when they take you to court, if they do, it's a kangaroo court. It's not innocent until proven guilty. It's the old Napoleonic code. You must prove you're innocent. And this is another thing that greatly concerns me. It's like the National Defense Authorization Act. If the president designates you to be a threat to national security, he or his designee can declare you to be an enemy of the state. You get no due process. Do you see a pattern here? This is very concerning to me. And when I look at scripture in this, I'm not saying we're in the end days and we're marching towards tribulation, which, by the way, people forget. Jesus is coming tomorrow. No, first of all, we have to have 3.5 years of relative miracles and peace and false signs and wonders, and then 3.5 years of hell on earth, literally and figuratively, before the second coming. So please be mindful of that before you make these prognostications. Jesus is coming tomorrow. He ain't coming tomorrow. He's not coming next year. He won't be here for at least 3.5 years. And let me remind you, Jesus was very clear when he said we shouldn't even ask the date. I don't know, only my Father in heaven knows. So this is something I think we need to be mindful of. I'm just I'm warning you that you need to be careful in dealing with your bank. And I will say this too. As a matter of fact, the banks are in real trouble. And I'm going to cover that next. You're going to want to come back and stay tuned because I'll tell you how to protect yourself there as well. So be careful about your deposits and withdrawals, right? And stay in prayer with the Lord.